Hello there, I'm a nerd named Ryan. Let's talk about Dot and Bubble, of course, the most recent episode of Doctor Who, Season 1, or Series 14 if you'd prefer. Episode 5, this one has been kind of described as being very Black Mirror, and I think that is an accurate description in more ways than one, but we'll get into that. So let's talk about it. Okay, so in Dot and Bubble we follow Lindy Pepperbean, who lives in Findtime. Findtime is this isolated community. It's underneath this giant dome, or like in a bubble, literally. And Findtime is a place where everything is always fine, and everyone who lives in Findtime, Lindy and all her friends, communicate and live using the Dot and Bubble. Basically, the Dot is a little tiny robot, and it sort of floats in front of you and projects the Bubble, which is a big sort of 360 screen, effectively. And you can see all your friends and everything like that all sort of on screens and talk to each other via screen. Basically, you can FaceTime people, but it's sort of all the time on this big bubble that's around your head. And the bubble also tells everyone where to go. It says, walk forward, turn right, turn left, so they don't walk into things. Literally, when Lindy drops the bubble at one point and has to walk without it, she can't walk in a straight line without the bubble telling her to. So we see how how kind of reliant on this technology everyone in Findtime is. And the Doctor and Ruby manage to find their way onto Lindy's screen and basically show her that there are monsters in Findtime that are eating all of the people who live there. And they're trying to get Lindy out, and they can only communicate with her through screens, but they're trying to get her to this underground system underneath Findtime so she can escape. That's basically the setup for Dot and Bubble. So, how did I find Dot and Bubble? Honestly, this one, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, right? Now, the ending is interesting, and we'll get to the ending and the kind of the final act. It started to pick up a bit in the final act. But the first 2/3 of this, I was having a really hard time with. And I think a lot of that is because of the lead character, Lindy. Now, Lindy and the rest of the people that we see in Findtime are all sort of written as these really kind of shallow, vapid, really annoying rich kids. And that's intentional. They're supposed to be that way. They're supposed to be annoying, and at the end we find out they're actually worse than annoying. They end up being quite horrible people. And so I understand that that's a deliberate choice to make them, these kind of insufferable and annoying characters. But the problem with doing that is that the characters are still insufferable and annoying, and it makes it difficult to root for them. So, when I'm seeing her trying to, get out of Findtime and escape the monsters, I struggle to invest in her as a character. You know what I mean? Because of the way that she's written. So I really struggled to kind of get into Lindy as a protagonist. I liked the actress. I thought the actress did a good job playing her. She was really good at playing this really annoying and then later really unlikable character. So props to her. But when a character's written that way, I don't know. I struggle to get invested in the story. Something else about this one as well is the plot of this one felt really rushed. Like, it felt like there was too much stuff to kind of reveal and not enough time to kind of do it all. It whizzed by at a very fast pace, and I felt like you didn't really get enough time to process a lot of things. So I would have liked it to have been, paced a little. Like, I'd like them to have taken their time. So I would have liked them to have taken their time a little bit more, maybe explored some more things about Findtime or about the home world that we see briefly flash up on the screen. We find out, by the way, that the home world, which is, Earth, is basically dead, and all the people in Findtime are basically, for all we know, the only people left. But yeah, everything feels like it's kind of rushed through so we can get to that third act, which is fine. The third act is the best part. But I don't know, I felt like the first 2/3 of this story, because of how rushed it felt and because of how unlikable Lindy was, I wasn't really enjoying it for the first 70% of this. So then we get to Act 3, where it really starts to pick up with the introduction of Ricky September. I love this character. This is such a good character. I actually wish we'd spent more time with him than we did with Lindy, because he's a much more fun and much more likable and much more interesting character. But alas, no. Anyway, Ricky is this kind of social media sort of influencer, this kind of singer guy. He appears on Lindy's screens a few times, but this is the first time we see him actually in the flesh. And Ricky basically helps Lindy get to the safe place. Basically, her dot runs out of power, so she doesn't have the dot and bubble up anymore. And as established earlier in the episode, she can't walk in a straight line without the dot and bubble. And there's the monsters all around her. And so Ricky is there, and he basically acts like the dot and bubble for her. He's like, walk forward. Don't look at them, look at me. Walk forward. So he really helps her get to the underground part. And I really like that part. I think that's a really fun part of the episode where they're getting to the safe space that the doctor's told them to get to, the safe area. And the doctor sends them a code, but he can only send it like one number at a time. And each number only pops up for 5 seconds. So they're putting this code in. And, it's a really, I like that moment. I think Ricky September's a really fun character. I want to root for him more. I started actually to kind of like Lindy a little bit. I did start to root for her then for about 5 minutes. And then basically she gets in danger. She and Ricky are in danger. The dot is about to kill her. And she basically sells Ricky out. Yeah, she sells Ricky out. She does him dirty. She gets the dot to attack him instead, just long enough so that she can escape. And yeah, that made me really like, okay, I'm done rooting for you. You are just a horrible person. And then that is doubled down on in the ending, where we finally see the Doctor and Ruby in the flesh with the TARDIS behind them. And Lindy finds other people from Fine Time that have survived. And their plan is that they're going to sail out into the homeworld and they're going to start again. Now, we know as the audience that the homeworld is pretty much gone. It's just done. It's dead. It's a wasteland. It's desolate. They're going to die if they go out there, basically. And the Doctor also knows this. And he says, look, I can take you all to safety. That's my ship. It's called the TARDIS. It's bigger inside. I can take you all somewhere safe. And they turn him down. And Lindy tells him the reason they're not going with him is because he's not one of them. She literally says that. She says, we can't travel with you. You're not one of us. And it's a real gut punch of an ending, right? It was that when she said that, when that reveal happened, I was like, oh my God, right? And the thing that really makes that scene heartbreaking and kind of hard to watch is that the Doctor, it's not that the Doctor doesn't care, it's that the Doctor wants to help them anyway. Like he says, you can say whatever you want, you can think whatever you want. I will do anything if you let me save you. Like he is literally begging them to let him save them. He says, you will all die. I can save your lives. Let me. And they won't do it because he's not one of them. And yeah, that was a real hard-hitting ending. Like they never outright say that it's because of his race, because it's a racist thing, but it's very heavily implied throughout the episode. And if you rewatch it, yeah, it's very heavily implied that it's a racism thing, right? But this was where the Black Mirror comparisons really kind of came to a head, because a lot of people have compared this to an episode of Black Mirror, I think mostly because of the social commentary about social media and our over-reliance on it and our addiction to social media. And that is a very Black Mirror thing. But for me, the thing about Black Mirror is that Black Mirror is a really kind of pessimistic show. And I say that as a compliment. I like Black Mirror a lot. But it has this real kind of cynical, misanthropic pessimism to it. A lot of episodes of Black Mirror have this idea of, humans are basically the worst. Humans are basically not nice. So it has this very kind of cynical, bleak, pessimistic nature that you don't often see in Doctor Who. Doctor Who, even in its darker episodes, is usually quite optimistic, positive, hopeful towards the end. So to get this really bleak, really kind of out there, like really an ending that just knocks all the wind out of you. And, seeing the Doctor break down, basically, because he wants so badly to help them, and they won't let him, and he's so frustrated. And Ncuti Gatwa's performance, you feel the pain and the anguish and the aggravation on his, within the Doctor. You feel that really come through in Ncuti's performance. He was great in this episode and in that scene in particular. That's the Black Mirror comparison that I would make. That's the Black Mirror feeling of, all the winds just getting knocked out of you with this kind of bleak, nihilistic, kind of very pessimistic ending. I really, Really liked the ending. The ending was really effective. The ending pretty much saved the episode for me because, like I say, before this, I wasn't really having a great time with the first 2/3 of this. When Ricky got introduced, it became a bit more fun, but it was still kind of like, this is fine. This is not a bad episode, but it's fine. But I think the ending really, really made up for it. So this wasn't the worst episode by any means. That I think is still Space Babies. I didn't like Space Babies at all. That's really the only episode of this season that I've disliked. This one still isn't great though. It's fine. The ending just about saves it. The ending does make it go up in my estimations a lot. But even then, it's still kind of it's a pretty mid episode for me. I don't think it's as good as Boom or 73 yards, but it is fine. It's probably one that I'm gonna appreciate more on a rewatch because I'm gonna see all the little kind of clues that lead up to that ending. But yeah, the ending was great. The ending was good. Ncuti Gatwa's performance, particularly at the ending, was great. But for me, the rest of the story, it didn't really work for me personally. But I'd love to know what you thought about Dot and Bubble. Let me know any thoughts you have on this down in the comments. Really looking forward to next week's episode, Rogue. That one looks like it's going to be really, really fun. I like the historical episodes in Doctor Who, so that one should be fun. That's about all I've got for you today. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye.